Welcome to Big Hearted Indy, where we empower men in Indianapolis to forge deep connections and impactful lives through authentic friendships and service. Join us as we explore personal growth, community leadership, and the transformative power of living out our faith in action. The podcast is produced by Citizen 7, and it is hosted by Greg Enas, Don Palmer, and I am Chris Spangle. And today our guests are Wes Cate and Darren Ho. And we've got kind of a different vibe to this podcast. We're changing a little bit in our direction. We've been talking a lot about friendship, not that we won't be talking about that. But Don, why don't you explain what we're going to be talking about today and introduce our guests?
Our focus now is about flourishing. How do we help the city flourish? Well, if you help the city flourish, you first got to start with helping the person flourish, and then their marriage flourish, and then their family flourish, and then flourishing within their career. We're going to talk about Zinger questions today. And my good friend who was on the podcast a number of sessions ago, Steve Kostler, asked me a question just 2 days ago that I thought, whoa, that really hurt. And he said, well, why didn't you expand more than you did when you were in the auto business? And it's a lot of questions, people thinking, gee, you had 3 stores, all these other people have all these gazillion stores. What happened to you? And there was part of me that said, I maybe didn't have as good a team, but I also didn't have people asking me the right questions, kind of helping give me a little more courage than what I demonstrated.
Yeah.
And then also to have the perspective of why would you want to do that, and what's the impact on your family and your work-life balance, et cetera. So we're going to talk about here how do we grow? Why don't we? Why didn't I listen? Why didn't I reach out for help? Maybe I didn't even know the right questions to ask. So we're going to have a lot of fun with Wes and Darren, and I'll turn it over to Greg.
It's great to be here with 2 dear friends, Darren and Wes. Known you guys for a few years. Met Wes much earlier than I met Darren, going way back when I read an article you had written for Praxis. And I said, who's this Wes Cate? Because I heard that you were here in town. I said, how come I don't know you? And then got to meet Darren. We'll get into a bit of that. Don, I was just reflecting on what Kaz asked you about why didn't you expand? I could have told him I did expand in business, but it was my waist size, and so now I'm
right there with you.
Trying to decrease that. But as we get to know you, Darren and Wes, Don sort of teed up the theme of this conversation, but I want to know why each of you chose to get into the field that God has called you into. What is your calling there? What need do you see? And tailor it to men, because we're talking most about men, but what have you seen out there that's compelling to you, given your background and given your own felt needs as to why you're doing what you're doing? So Wes, why don't we start with you, then turn over to Darren?
Yeah. So thanks, Greg. I would say, so maybe starting here with the end in mind is, why do I do this work? And what is the need that I think that there is here? And I think over the course of my career, I've seen this thing of, I don't think that people should navigate hard waters alone. And having somebody in their corner that they can trust, having somebody in their corner that can be confidential, but that can also provide some honest feedback to them through the process, which can often look like a friend. It doesn't necessarily have to be, say, an executive coach, which is the work that I do, but having somebody in your corner that is invested in you and that can help you ask the hard questions and explore some of the hard inner things. That's a need that I have seen over the course of others' careers that I think tends to be a gap, especially in the lives of men, of having somebody trustworthy that you can be confidential with and fully open and honest with. But I would say over the course of my story, that it's been a bit of an unconventional and wandering story, and it's been mostly driven by curiosity more than anything else. Having started with went from a music degree to a master's degree in international relations, started asking big questions, and I got really curious. You mentioned friendship earlier, but got really curious about what the creative potential of friendship was, especially in a business context and especially in the developing world, and started to explore that question a bit. And eventually started working with an entrepreneur named David Helmer, who I thought was an incredible person at actually generating friendships. And that was sort of his approach to business. And there was a lot of creative work that came out of that. And so I had the chance to observe some of those dynamics, and eventually started working deeper in his company as an internal consultant, both on the corporate social responsibility side as well as on the HR side. And then stepped out and started working for a small coaching firm here in Indianapolis called Kairos. Had an incredible experience there, and that's really where I gained my chops as an executive coach. And again, was just seeing the patterns there of people need a confidential space where they don't have to navigate hard waters alone. So that would be the headline around why I do what I do.
That's beautiful. And Darren, from that, your background and your own felt needs.
Well, first of all, it's great to be with Wes, and I get to hear his story a lot, and it continues to remind me about my own story, in that we share this vocation of being professional coaches, but we're also friends. And the idea of actually running a business where you want to be with people because you want to be a little more like them. And there's something about friendship that is that. Why not co-create a space of building ventures and playing roles distinctively where you want to be with people because you want to be a little more like them? Good friend of mine says, okay, Darren, don't stare, just glance. Stare at Christ, but glance at your friends and enjoy them, but keep your eyes where they need to be. So I'll kind of start with that. I mean, it's great that we're here as friends and get to be around each other and be a little bit more like each other. And I'd say that my journey towards becoming a professional coach and an entrepreneur is very much part of the generational story of my family. I'm a third generation, not born in the same country as my family, my parents. My children, my 3 kids, are also not born in the same country as me. That's 4 generations. So what that means is that we tend to have to be frontiering people, and we tend to have to decide what to do with our lives where we've been placed, which is usually not where we were born. And I think that there's an entrepreneurial spirit that comes out of that. And out of that is a character groundingness, which then leads into how do we lead and how do we influence. I'm the oldest of 2, both first born in American families. My parents were immigrants from Southeast Asia, country of Brunei and the island of Borneo. And my father was born on that same island in the country of Malaysia, but raised in Singapore. But my brother and I was the oldest by 4 years. And thus, by just that distinction, I was designated a leader. That's actually how it shaped most of the half of my life of leadership, which is I have a title, I have an advantage of age, therefore I have a little bit of wisdom, and therefore you should follow me. And in many ways in my professional career, I was raised in that type of paradigm, which in the 80s and the 90s, and the 90s particular, there weren't really great examples of who we really want to follow from a character standpoint of view. There is a bit of the family. You're older than me. I have to follow. You're my father. I should follow you. You're my uncle. But really, why would I if I had to? And so most of my career, I was struggling with this question. Would I really follow you if I wasn't paid to follow you? And if I would follow you, what was the reason why I would follow you? And I had been on that journey in my entire life. At 18, having leadership role in high school and then in college and onward to call it into the work life. I always asked the question, if I didn't have to, because apparently I have to follow you, why would I? And it became really a question of character. It wasn't until I met the Lord in 2005, 6, 7 that I realized really the character of God and the character of Jesus. And as that really just transformed the way I was already asking questions from a secular view to a far more confident place of, we've got to develop the character of people, the character of their role as leader, whether that's them in their life personally, leading self, them in their venture, their business, them in that particular role of leading family. And that's really been the last 15 years of formation for me. I worked for 19 years with Eli Lilly and Company, did this over 3 continents, and had several high exposure as well as high contrasting cultural leadership opportunities that taught me how to lead without using my English, taught me how to watch and do a lot of ethnography, all to just kind of grow this this way of being able to form character and doing that with others. And then we started the Restored Leader in 2018 and have since relocated to Indianapolis 4 years and learning how to continue to make friends again as a repatriated American after being gone for 12 years. And the men in this room have all been part of this journey for me. So it's great to be here 4 years later, still patriating as an American abroad so long. And it's great to be back.
Can't wait to dive in deep on both this. Don, did you have something you want to respond to? Because I have another question.
No, please.
Okay, so you both experienced a business life, you with David and Darren, 19 years at Lilly.
Yeah.
What would be transferable across your families? You're both dads, you're both husbands, around character, or maybe another word that you'd like to use that we'd want to explore a bit as to what is that foundational essence of who we are as men that can transcend who we're called to be with our family, with our business, and with our civic duty even here in the city that we call home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when I coach somebody, I think one of the places that I start is actually helping them find a core sense of who they are in the way that they experience themselves. And that might be through like an imaginative exercise. It might be through a contemplative exercise of getting to understand themselves at a deep level, even before they can name it, even before they can put a label on what it is that they stand for, or have language around who they are. If I'm coaching somebody who happens to be a believer, I think that then unlocks the opportunity for us to talk about what does God think about you? What is true about what God says about you and who you are? And then being able to anchor in that, remind themselves of that continually. But what I try to do is I try to get people to understand and develop a reference point that they can return to again and again and again, even as all the changes happen throughout their work life, their family life. And that being a felt reference point, not just a concept or not just a word or something that kind of lives outside of themselves, but something that they actually experience and something that is lodged in their body, that again, they can just return to that felt sense of who they are. Some of the language that I use is, who are you at your best? And being able to experience themselves, who they are at their best. And then being able to label, who am I when I'm kind of over-indexing on something? Who am I when I am redlining, if you will, where I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed. This is kind of some redlining signals. What are you like there? And then also down below when you're withdrawn and when you're vague, when you are lacking some energy or maybe burning out, and being able to understand what some of those thresholds are for them so that they can, again, return to this middle space of, I'm courageous, I'm curious, I'm clear, I'm more creative, I have better relationships, I am more engaged, these kinds of places. So
sounds like that's an anchor regardless of the circumstances almost.
100%.
Value.
Yep.
Like when we gather all the guys together. Some are making millions of dollars and some don't even have jobs. You're talking about a confidence that comes from who you are as an individual, regardless of your circumstances. Is that sort of one of the fruits of this anchor point, is having a confidence and
that's
value.
the hope. That's the goal. That's the work. It's something that's, I think, a continuing and ongoing work that happens over the course of your life. As we figure out how to acclimate to change, because change is hard for people. And how we understand ourselves in regard to the changes that are happening around us, we again have to return to that same reference point. This is something that I'm continuing to learn too. This isn't just something you have figured out, but that's the trajectory.
It's good.
Yeah.
Wes, yeah.
Wes, it's good. I mean, I'm going to build off of that.
Okay.
And very similar style, little nuance to that. Actually, Wes and I both believe in the question, who are you becoming, in a very deep way. It's actually something he writes about, talks about, and it's probably my most favorite question. Who are you becoming? And there's so many ways to answer that question. For us, at Restored Leader, when we talk about being with people, the anchor points, we use the term called your core value. I think there's actually many ways to get to a core value. But our first approach to hosting a conversation with somebody is what is undeniably true, how you see yourself and see the world. And you would never want to compromise this. And it's something you possess and you want to become more of. That is your core value. And in the world today where we come off of the late 90s and 2000s with great written material about values and core values, we're still living in a platitudinal world. We like to put things on the wall that represent things we like to become, but we don't necessarily want to practice becoming them more. And if we do, I think we find ourselves in a more successful place day on day. And I think that's what coaching really brings. Coaching conversations bring what are we anchoring on? What is true? How do we see ourselves and see the world? And do we want to become more of that? And when we do, the role that we play at work, home, and community changes. How we embody those core really, really is a creative process. The other question I like to ask is, how do you define leadership? I happen to, I think, believe entering into the role of leadership in multiple contexts is an important way to explore becoming. Nobody ever says, well, I want to work people really hard. I don't want them to take vacation. I want to get the most out of them. And I say they work 40 hours a week, but really I'm hoping they work 60. Nobody ever says that, but I think everyone that's listening to me now knows exactly where I'm going with this. So if you're going to become that leader, if you abstain from declaring the leader you want to become, then you're actually okay with allowing you to slide into a transactional type of leadership, which everyone understands what it's like. And we're probably doing it in ourselves in certain ways. So we got to redeem that a bit. And I think anchoring into what is true, which we think is the core, and understanding a vision for leadership is important. I think we can have as friends those conversations every opportunity we get. We can check to see if we're going authentically on that.
So let me take kind of the side. I love those things. I love it when I'm like in a self-actualizing, hey, I'm already on top and I'm just getting better. But I found myself so many times like the tidal wave feels like it's crashing over me, or it hasn't engulfed me, but I see it right there. So maybe I don't like who I'm becoming.
Yeah.
And I feel a little bit of a victim because I'm not the leader. My boss is the guy that is telling me, sure, you got X number of weeks vacation. In a nice kind of a way, he doesn't say it, but you don't need to take it. And so how do I deal with that part of character? And is character static, or is it growing? There was times where I said, oh, the good Lord's working on your character. I said, you know what? He needs to take a break and find somebody else to work on that character. So maybe some comments relative to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in those moments where there might be significant overwhelm where you don't feel like you're at the top, and oftentimes that's where I might meet leaders actually when they come and raise their hand for coaching. It's oftentimes when they're at an inflection point where they say, "I can't do this by myself. I need some help because things are coming my way." And I think some of that is just helping them realize that they've got small opportunities for agency in what can seem like an overwhelming influx of something that's too big for them. Of one, it is, so one of the things that I do, Don, is I'll have them name precisely where they're experiencing the emotion in their body.
Yeah.
Like
Good.
just take your finger and point to it. And what that does is it localizes the experience rather than it feeling like this existential thing outside of them. And then if they can name it, so for instance, if they're having the experience of overwhelm just means that my perception of my responsibilities are bigger than what I can execute on. And it's oftentimes a perception. It's not a reality. And so then it might be coaching them through what are the steps that you can take. And if you can just get somebody to start to build some motion in a direction, then they can start to build some additional confidence in that. But then even for somebody that might be working for a boss that's requiring a lot of them, it might be helping them build the confidence to give feedback and to say, or to establish their boundaries and to realize that they have the ability to establish boundaries, and to have values that are separate than maybe what the company's values are. There's risks in that. There are, there's risks in that. But at the same time, you're starting to create better space for yourself in the way that you're engaging in the world.
Okay.
And oftentimes you can talk about character, but character, yes, it's an internal process as well as an external process of working and practicing those things that Darren is talking about here.
Yeah.
So if I don't raise my hand to get the services of an executive coach, what are some other steps that I can take in your agency example, maybe Darren?
Yeah. I just think that, Wes and I put out our material because we just want to bless people with the framework that we think can help you self-actualize. Does character change over time? It absolutely does. It does because your journey is constantly in a dynamic motion towards something. We just want to know where you're going towards, because then we can actually give you practices and frameworks to think about becoming more of that version you feel you're becoming versus the one you feel like you're made to become. There's a distinction there. Who do I want to become versus who am I really becoming? I think everyone in their 20s and 30s can sit with that question. Now, to be honest, as you mature as a man, getting older into your 30s and into your 40s, I think the self-actualization becomes a lot more clear. And that's where we can do some more self-transformation from the mind standpoint of view.
Uh-huh.
So, yes, you can be in friend groups that are intentionally asking these questions, very simple questions to sit with. I think one of the biggest issues with guys in particular is that they can't share these things vulnerably that well, that easily. And you need to have mentors. Let's talk about another role. You need to have mentors that are friends that come around and encourage you to speak what is true, the true narrative. And I think that's where that role of mentorship comes in as friend and mentor.
So a lot of people I talk to go, Don, that's great. I don't know what a mentor looks like. I'm afraid to ask somebody.
That's right.
It sounds like a lot of responsibility. So what suggestions would you have to somebody that what's a baby step or some verbiage I could use, and maybe so the person doesn't feel like they're signing up for a lifetime, if you're going to approach a mentor?
And distinguish mentor from coach in that answer to Don.
Sure. First of all, I think a mentor classically is somebody who gives advice from the bias of their life. That's it. Gives advice from the bias of their life. And there is no repercussion. There may be some. There may be definitely implication, but a mentor gives advice from the bias of their life. So oftentimes mentors are asked to give advice from their perspective. Anybody can mentor. Anybody can mentor. A coach, if it's a full-time professional coach, plays a role where we host a conversation space where you gain awareness, creativity to determine what's the next best step for yourself. There's very little advice in that. It's hosting a conversation. So I think everybody in our community can serve both and play both well. Mentoring is easier to walk into. And I'd encourage that. I'd encourage more men to think, do I have a life where I might be an expert in something? I have a care for others because I've gone through a difficult life or a blessed one, and both of them are also welcomed, and that I can speak into from the bias. And does anybody want to hear me? I think C7 is a great opportunity for us to gather another generation of mentors in this. By the way, there's also, notice I didn't mention anything about mentoring in terms of age. I didn't at all. And I want to make that clear. I've learned very, very clearly from the sages in the past. They call it reverse mentoring. People that are generations younger, helping them speak into with the bias of their life. So those are some ways I would look at it from a mentor standpoint of view. If you want to enter into conversations where you just want more space and not to resolve, then anybody can ask and have a conversation. Hey, who do you dream about becoming? And how are you on that pathway now? What changes do you have to make in your own life towards that dream? That could be a great mentoring conversation. And it's certainly the way we start in the coaching conversation to establish the baseline.
Can I hop in here and add a couple different things? So I'm going to go back a couple ticks in the conversation for just a second. But when it comes to the way that, say, C7 or just men in general could possibly engage with each other, that invites more of these conversations, and how do you maybe create more of these conversations where these things can be explored and teased out? I think one is recognizing that when there are changes that are happening, like inflection points that are happening in the life of anybody, and it could be having a baby. It could be I'm getting ready to sell my business, or I sold my business, or it could be I'm getting a new role. I'm preparing for a new role. When those moments of change start to happen, there's a lot of stuff that goes through our heads. That there's a lot of opportunity for us to make weird decisions in those moments. And so I would just say, if there's an opportunity, if you notice that, just come close to somebody. And you don't have to, kick down the doorway and say like, hey, what's going on over there? You can just say, hey, I've been thinking about you. I know that there's a lot going on in your world right now. And it could be text messages, right? It could be like one-off sorts of things. It doesn't have to be a full-on, sit down, here's our engagement type of thing. It can just be, just come close to somebody, keep the conversation going. And over that period of time, people will raise their hand because they'll know that you're a safe place to talk about hard things with. So.
Yeah, what were you saying about what are you doing for Citizen 7? What are you developing? I understand you're working on a series.
Oh, yeah. So something that several of us are doing for Citizen 7, but there are these these small group experiences that Darren's hosting one, I'm hosting one, and mine in particular is 4 leaders at the threshold of change. Okay. And it's basically saying that that moment in time is you don't have a map for what's ahead. And so it's got to be a creative process because you don't have a map. And so I would be welcoming, say, 6 to 8 leaders who might find themselves at those critical thresholds to go over, I think it's a 6-week experience where there would both be opportunity for discernment in a group setting, and then say creative response. You could even think of it as design outside, where you come back and then feed that back to the group. So it's a group that's both discernment oriented as well as action oriented.
This starts when?
It's going to start sometime around September 1st.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Darren, what's your group?
Yeah, I'm going to focus on the men in the community who are getting ready to be engaged, newly married, or in the thick of marriage.
Okay.
They could also be divorced and have a family.
Okay.
The men who are interested in pursuing a unified, confident, and joyful family. And we'll be doing a series of 6 conversations following our Restored Family it's really a journey that we host people in. It's going to be a group coaching exercise for 6 sessions, a little bit of work in between. And we think that actually journeys like this, where there's multiple people involved, can be asynchronous. Meaning the interested party needs a conversation space. Where can we find one? Let's work there. Let's bring our rest of our team in. That could be a spouse or adult children or children that are able to actually work through the self-actualization. So we're really, really looking forward to hosting men in any of those stages. Thinking about getting married, engaged, just married, or in the thick of it. We would love to have, I think, about 6 to 10 men in this conversation space.
Don, why don't you set the stage for what we're trying to do with men and who we're going to extend the invitation to for these kinds of opportunities? We're beta testing a number of things, and we've heard expressed desires from men, both in business and career transitions, as well as just their own personal home life, a need to grow and develop. So any thoughts on the stage that we're trying to set for this community?
I think that we're trying to do something that, to my knowledge, no one else has tried. And I tell people, if we fail, at least we tried. Zig Ziglar, I heard a quote that was provocative to me. He said, something worth doing is something worth doing poorly. What? The point was, you need to get started. We don't have it figured out, but we are willing to take a shot, right? And we'll get better, and we'll figure it out as we go.
And we didn't pick 2 guys where we know we're going to do poorly.
Exactly. Exactly. So you don't have to have all your answers figured out to be a participant in the group, right? Like, hey, all of us are working through things and trying to get better and trying to be more loving. So, but Citizen 7, we're looking at it and saying, how can we really be useful to people?
Yeah.
And so we looked at marriage, and we're going to be doing some things on subsidizing marital counseling, career enhancement, not transition, but enhancement. Hey, in some instances, you're just trying to get better. In other instances, your enhancement is dealing with a transition. Somebody was a startup and didn't have funding, and to no fault of your own, you're in the middle of things. And then mission trips. We're going to be having some adventure for some folk that have never been on mission trips. So we're looking for useful ways. Some founders have put up some money to say, hey, go show some hospitality to this group and try to be useful. So that's, in terms of helping you flourish, we're putting our money where our mouth is and trying to do really creative things. And you may go, that wasn't helpful. Okay, well, help us make it better.
We'll find out.
So stay tuned, audience, for an announcement where we extend an invitation to join one of these groups. And we're really excited that you guys, as friends now, growing friends, are going to be able to help our men do what we always want to do together, is out of our friendship, spread the love of Jesus into practical ways in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our businesses, and ultimately see this city flourish. Go ahead, Darren.
I'm just going to build on this idea of serving the city and being all about Indy. And I love the fact that there's a vision set up for people with their gifts and talents to come in and share. And going back to the original prompts, what are some small ways that we can encourage men is to model the way of giving time and talent and treasure if need be. I think that's a good reminder that Citizen 7 has kind of given me, which is we want to collect men so that we can serve as small access points to where God wants us to relate, become friends, create seasons together. So the series that we're doing here is really an extension of the vision for this season.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention is if there's an entrepreneur out there that's listening, and I know you understand this, is that you're building something because it wasn't there before, or maybe because you hoped and wanted it to be. And that's why you're doing it. As coaches in the work and line work we do, we always are trying to become just a little bit more aware of how we can be a little bit better each time in the roles that we play. And so what we're hosting here is an opportunity for us to also just be in that space amongst friends to vulnerably explore how we're moving forward relationally, individually, in our own leadership of those entrusted to our care. So it is very much a blessing when we get to serve in our vocation.
Yeah.
And last I'd say is that this idea of being able to be an entrepreneur and in this vocation is formative in that I would just rather talk and give advice all day long.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easy. It's easy for me. Those of you who know me, like I can talk all day long. But when you're with me and I'm coaching you, I don't say very much. And that's formative. And so I want to encourage men to explore that becoming element of, gosh, should I try something differently that would form me to who I want to become? Should I go to that event because it would expose me, but it would probably form me in the way I want to? So I want to encourage people to do that. It takes courage, just like it does for me to sit here and talk like this.
Our quarterly theme, we're trying to use EOS for Season 7, is choose the harder road. And it's little things of going to a meeting that you wouldn't go to sign up for a group. You think, oh man, is that touchy-feely, or hey, are these my kind of guys? Hey, choose the harder road. Step up,
there you go.
Take a look. What's one big mistake you see people make? And what are two daily habits that you see that contribute to people's flourishing or just being self-aware and self-actualizing?
Yeah. So I would say maybe the bigger mistake that I see is, so there's this idea that the more that somebody grows in influence, the less likely that people are to tell them the truth, but that's actually when they need it the most. And so the fix for that is deep listening and asking for feedback and receiving feedback. So anytime that a leader or an individual, it could be outside of an organization, finds themselves in a bit of an echo chamber, go outside of that echo chamber to find somebody to tell you a conflicting view of you and who you are. So I think being able to operate in truth is something that's really important, because the alternative is you start making bad decisions if you're not getting feedback and if you're not listening. And then I would say two habits. One habit is maybe just to practice being as present as you possibly can in the moment with the person sitting across from you. And so that's just maybe just a body scan and feeling your feet on the floor in that particular moment and being really present to the other person in front of you. And then I would probably say at the end of the day or at some point during the day, do a little bit of reflecting. So just jot some things down in a journal or on a piece of paper or on your iPhone, just to say, what brought me energy and what took away energy. And that's just going to help you kind of pay attention to some things that maybe you wouldn't have noticed otherwise.
Right. Good ones. Yeah. Biggest mistake is not knowing that you need to rest and not learning how to rest. Biggest mistake. We're all finite. Sometimes we don't think we are. My 21-year-old self did not think I was finite. Rest is a cornerstone part of restoration. It is part of the word. And I think that the biggest mistake is that we're all missing coming into God's rest. That means regular rhythms, which includes Sabbath, a full day, whatever that day is. It includes periods of time being present with what actually restores my mind, my body, and my soul. So rest is for mind, it's for body, and it's for soul. And everyone has a particular bent on how they need it and need less of it. But that's a big mistake, is not resting and not knowing how to rest is a great topic friends should be talking about.
So I'm your friend, and you can tell I'm a retailer. I'm working evenings, weekends. I'm serving in the church. I'm doing seven. But I am
knackered, tired,
working on fumes.
Yeah.
What question do you ask? What's that look like to kind of help me create some awareness or
Sure.
name that?
Well, if you wanted to have a conversation about that and you were wanting to talk about rest,
I'm not
versus
even
me
aware of
noticing. Yeah. I'd probably ask you, what do you do for recreation? And what does it do for you? That's a good way to kind of
Okay.
say, what is it that you like to engage in?
Yeah.
And what does it do for you?
Okay.
There is a relationship with our recreation, which is important for us to understand.
Yeah.
And what does it do?
Yeah.
I'd probably want to know you as a person, and in getting to know you, Don, I'd probably want to know, hey, what is recreation to you?
Yeah.
The other question I'd ask is then, who else does that with you? One of the questions I really love asking is who rests well in your life? It's a stumping question because we're not paying attention to that. I think an even simpler way is tell me what brings you most delight. Delight is a state of mind and a presence that you have, usually because you're focused on something and you're not doing something else. In Hebrew, they call that term menua, which is actually used with Shabbat, because when you stop, you should delight in the stopping. So what do you delight in? And if you said, I just love working.
Yeah.
I get that. What does work give you back? Oh man, a lot of headache.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So now we're into, would you like it not to? Or what do you want to do with that?
Yeah.
We can get in conversations like that without talking about the weather if we really want to get into it. So
yeah. I have found that sometimes asking a person on a 1 to 10, say,
sure,
how's your
scale
delight
question.
factor?
How's
or,
your delight
or
factor?
whatever else it is. And this guy's blown me smoke. He says, 3. Well, now we've got a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, we're not getting maybe to an 8, but what small steps could you take to get to a 5?
Yeah.
And is there any role I can play in that?
That's right. That's right. And they may not even want to take steps, but
Yeah.
at least they said it.
Yeah.
I'm a 3.
Yeah, good. Great.
My final question. My thesis is that if men and women learn to be together, we can turn our families, our businesses, and our city around. What advice would you give to the men listening in today and in the future on how to be male and female together, created in God's image collectively? But what is the secret to being male and female, to being a brother and sister together in this world? Any thoughts there?
Oh, wow. That's great. That's an awesome question.
There's kind of 2 things that I would say is, one, just across the board, I don't think that you can go wrong with listening and asking good questions to understand and calibrate, so to understand and calibrate, and then also to move at the speed of relationship. And you can just check in with somebody else and just start to notice, like, hey, it seems like maybe you're not as, engaged in this conversation. Is there anything that I can do to adjust to make sure that you've got more room? And so just being able to be aware of the dynamic that's there, name the dynamic openly, and then co-design it in real time. And I think it's a dance. It really is a dance. I don't know that there's a broad way to say this is the way that you do it, but I think it's being able to name the dance and figure out how to dance together.
Okay, Wes. Good.
Yeah, in the context of family, I'll tell you, my wife Stephanie and I, when people ask us to describe our relationship, I think the simplest word that we use to enter into is it's a partnership. Now, it's a covenantal partnership, but what we often go into is that we notice each other's gifts, and we really, really ask each other to play our gifts well. And in between all of that is the messiness of the relationship, but noticing the gifts and really asking your spouse, in the context of leading in family, to play those gifts to the fullest extent and to allow each other to have the agency to use them well in the partnership is really, really powerful. I don't know how we do things. 17 years, 3 kids, 3 continents, running a business, starting a business, and then having a demanding W-2 job. There's nothing other than I've got to play my lane really, really well. She's got to play hers, but then we invest time every week with the right rhythm. We just have to invest time into noticing each other again. So I think Wes's points about, hey, how is this relationship going? What can I do less or more? I think that's a good transition to the business partnerships or partnerships where men and women have to be together. It's so important to represent the diverse gender perspective and important to make sure that we're noticing how we complement each other in the workplace. And there's much more to go on in that, but it's still all about noticing and gifting and being able to ask these really powerful open questions. I notice you're tired. I can tell you're disinterested because the way your eyes look in this topic. I just noticed those things. Would you like to have a discussion about that? I noticed. There's nothing better than to say I noticed something, because then that means you're being intentional.
And asking for permission, or just, are you interested in it?
Are you interested in talking about that?
Chris?
Is there anything you'd like to add? Like, how could people get in touch with you personally if they wanted to have a conversation?
Yeah, if they would love to have a conversation, you can email me directly at wes@creatio, that's creatio.space, or you can visit my website, creatio.space.
Yeah. You can reach us at restoredleader.com. There's a connect to a coach button there. You can reach me that way, which is a very easy and fast way to get to my email box and scheduling a time to meet up.
Well, thank you to Don, Greg, Wes, Darren. Thank you all for joining us here. Thank you to everybody watching on Zoom. So every fourth Monday at noon, we do this live, and you can watch on Zoom and ask a question and leave comments and for discussion. Then we air this on YouTube and on a podcast feed later down the road. So you can, and make sure you go to YouTube and check out the shorts page on the Citizen 7 YouTube channel. You can take all the episodes, and there's a bunch of great chunks and little highlights from each episode that you can share with your friends if something speaks to you. So thank you so much for listening. Go to citizen7indy.com, citizen7indy.com to learn more about Citizen 7 Indy. Make sure you sign up for the emails. There are all kinds of great events coming up. There was just, Don, a great event out at Hunter Smith's farm that looked like a bunch of guys and their families having fun, and fun is a core principle of Citizen 7.
Yeah, we believe we can save the world, we can worship Jesus, but we should be having some fun too.
That's fair.
That's right.
So, and looking ahead, the calendar is full. There's a lot of great things coming up, and you don't want to miss any of it, and your chance to make real connections with other men in Indianapolis. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next month here on Big Hearted Indy.